In the 2016 NBA draft, you had arguably one of the biggest prospects the league had seen, what was thought anyway, since LeBron James, or I guess really Andrew Wiggins, since a lot of scouts claim Wiggins was the greatest prospects since LeBron. But in the 2015-16 season, everyone had their eyes on Ben Simmons, the #1 recruit out of high school in 2015, 6'10" big man that played point guard with his incredible court vision, passing, elite level defense, and athleticism to finish around the rim. The only problem was he couldn't shoot. And that actually still remains to this day. And although Ben Simmons, despite some hesitancy with his shooting, was still selected #1 overall in the 2016 draft by the Philadelphia 76ers, but now looking ahead 6 years later after the draft, almost 7 years now actually, would Simmons still go #1 overall in a redraft? Well, that's what we'll be discussing in this video as we continue on the series of redrafting the last 10 NBA drafts. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. So looking at the 2016 draft class overall, it's actually a much more talented class top to bottom than say the 2015 draft or the 2013 draft, which were some of the worst of the past decade. I would even go as far as to say that this draft has produced even more talent thus far anyway than the 2014 draft. So you have to remember that most of the guys from this class are just now entering their primes, most of them being in their mid to late 20s. So you're talking about a talent pool that can still continue to get better in the coming years. But despite the great talent, you definitely have some busted picks that should not have gone anywhere as high as they should have. Dragon Bender and Chris Dunn both going in the top 5, in case in point, as neither of them are in the league anymore. But let's start with the #1 pick, who, as I just mentioned, the Sixers took Ben Simmons with that selection. And while I think any team that had the #1 pick in that draft still would have taken Ben Simmons at that time, you can't say in a redraft that Simmons would have been taken first. Still a great player, and he's still going to be a top 10 in this redraft, but given his injury history, the confidence issues he has with his shooting, the fact that because of his shooting and free throw shooting that's so poor, he ends up becoming a liability on offense in the playoffs. So instead of taking Simmons, the Sixers are going to select Jaylen Brown #1 overall, who now in hindsight would have actually been a great fit alongside Joel Embiid, an elite scorer, all-star, can shoot from outside and help space the floor, although he hasn't been shooting the 3-ball as well more recently, but also a solid defender. Not saying he would have changed the Sixers to get them over the hump and win a title had they drafted Brown over Simmons, but I do think that Jaylen Brown would have been a better overall fit at this point, and you can't really disagree that Jaylen Brown is a better overall player than Ben Simmons is. With the #2 pick, this is where the Lakers selected Brandon Ingram, another top 5 recruit coming out of high school. He was often likened to Kevin Durant with his scoring ability and agility getting to the basket. I think that was always a bit of a stretch, and people more so were just making those comparisons because of the similar build and frames. But either way, Brandon Ingram has turned into a really nice player. Struggled a bit in his first couple of seasons with the Lakers, ultimately got traded in that Anthony Davis deal in 2019 to the Pelicans, and ever since joining the Pelicans, he's been great for them. Won Most Improved Player of the Year, became an all-star. He's really improved his outside shooting. It's funny because Brandon Ingram actually leads this class in overall points per game, even higher than Jaylen Brown. But even with all of that, I'm actually going to have the Lakers select Pascal Siakam here. Siakam, who was actually taken 27th by the Raptors, ended up becoming one of the biggest steals of this draft, getting him that late. He's the only player in the whole draft that has multiple All-NBA player selections to his name, having been selected twice already, and likely on his way to a third with the way he's playing this season. Ben Simmons is the only other one who was selected once. He's second in the class in terms of overall win shares, third overall in box plus minus, as well as valuable replacement player. It took Siakam a couple years to develop, but then really took off in his third season, that being the year where the Raptors won the championship, and has been an elite level scorer and arguably one of the best players on the Raptors ever since Kawhi Leonard left the team. And so far this season, he's been playing out of his mind, putting up over 26 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, and 6.7 assists, a top 15 efficiency rating in the league, and it's why I'm going with Siakam as high as #2 here in a redraft. With the 3rd overall pick, this is where the Celtics selected Jaylen Brown, but since he's off the board with that first pick, the Celtics here are actually going to take Brandon Ingram. Ingram, already talked about everything that he brings to the table. It would have been a bit of a questionable fit with Ingram and Jason Tatum if the Celtics ended up still taking Tatum the following draft. For this, it would be more of a best player available, and if they needed to trade Ingram later on for some assets because of the fit with Tatum, they likely could have gotten a decent haul for him. With the #4 pick, this is where we got our first busted pick in the Suns taking Dragon Bender, who was already out of the league by 2020, so the Suns definitely aren't taking Bender here. Instead, with the #4 pick, they're actually going to take Domantas Sabonis as a much better big man option. I know some people will probably be surprised by this pick to be redrafting Sabonis this high and above some of the other guys I'm about to mention, but Sabonis has actually been one of the most consistently good players from this draft since entering the league. Comes into OKC, doesn't really have the most impactful rookie season in that year where Westbrook just chased stats to average a triple-double, gets traded to the Pacers in that Paul George trade along with Oladipo, and right away stands out, starts becoming more productive, develops his jump shot more, goes on to become a 2-time All-Star, and still continues to be a dominant big, an elite rebounder, currently leading the league in rebounding at 12.4 per game, consistently puts up over 18 points per game on high efficiency. This season, he's actually having the most efficient season of his career with the Kings. You might also be surprised to know that he's second in the entire class in win shares, box plus minus. His impact is undeniable, which is why I have him so high on this list at number 4. At number 5, this is where the Minnesota Timberwolves took Chris Dunn, which I always really liked Dunn. Dude was a fighter, a hustler, a dog on defense, but injuries and his inability to really improve his offensive game found himself out of the NBA already, currently playing in the G League, but I have a hard time seeing him even making an NBA return despite playing well in the G League right now. So instead of taking Dunn, the Wolves are actually going to select DeJounte Murray. Murray actually fell all the way to 29th in that draft, took some time to develop with the Spurs, and then started breaking out the last couple of seasons before ultimately becoming an all-star, one of the better two-way players in the game. And to think what this team could have been with Karl-Anthony Towns, DeJounte Murray, and then eventually Anthony Edwards would have been an incredible core compared to what they're going through right now after trading effectively 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert. With the 6th pick, this is where the Pelicans took Buddy Hield. Obviously, they traded him to the Kings in that DeMarcus Cousins trade, and while Hield has been nice, a great sharpshooter, talented and athletic player, I wouldn't say he's worthy of a number 6 pick compared to some of the guys who went after him. And instead of the Pels taking Buddy Hield here, they're going to take a more dynamic scorer in Jamal Murray, who was taken in that pick after Hield by the Nuggets, 7th overall. Murray suffered that ACL injury, which caused him to miss all of last season, but he's slowly getting back to form, a great scorer, one of the better outside shooters in the West, and unlike Buddy Hield, plays defense, has been more impactful when you look at his on-court, off-court numbers. With the 7th pick, again, this is where the Nuggets took Jamal Murray, but since he's off the board here, they're going to take Ben Simmons. This is where Ben Simmons is going to get drafted in a redraft. Now, the thing about Ben Simmons is when you look at his numbers across the entire draft class, by advanced metrics, Ben Simmons has been the best player from this draft. He leads the class in win shares, box plus minus, defensive rating, second in rebounding behind Sabonis, first in assists, the highest PER rating. But the reason I have Simmons so low here is because of what we now know of Ben Simmons 6 years later. The injuries, the lack of shooting on, also just the fact that his heart just doesn't seem to be into the game. Doesn't seem to actually want to win as badly as other players do. So with that in mind, knowing you're getting a talented player, but also some baggage that comes with him, it's why I have him going this late. But he's still a very talented player, one of the best defenders in the league, at least before this season. But I do think we all question whether he'll actually be an all-star in this league going further. More of a higher level role player in the right roster around him that doesn't require him to produce a lot of offense. At number 8, this is where the Kings selected Marquise Chris, of course, because it's the Kings who love to throw away lottery picks. Chris is already out of the NBA. His game never really developed in the league. So here the Kings are going to take Malcolm Brogdon, who actually was selected in the 2nd round and ended up winning Rookie of the Year since Simmons sat out due to injury that first season, the only 2nd round pick to ever win the Rookie of the Year award. And Brogdon, although he's never been an all-star or won any major award since winning Rookie of the Year, and although he's had his own issues with injuries, he's been a really effective and impactful player when healthy. A pest on defense, good facilitator, solid scorer. I wouldn't say he exceeds or is elite at any one skill, but is solid at so many facets of basketball, which is why I have him being redrafted in the top 10 when you look at how he stacks up with the rest of the class. At number 9, this is where the Raptors took Jakob Poeltl, and I'm actually going to keep this pick with the Raptors taking Poeltl. Poeltl was moved by the Raptors in that Kawhi Leonard trade that also included DeMar DeRozan, and if you've been following my Bulls channel at all, you already know I think Poeltl is one of the more underrated players in the NBA that just continues to get better and better on both ends of the floor. He's actually a player I would love to have on the Bulls. I wouldn't say he has star potential even as he enters his prime, but he's one of the better bigs in the league with his rim protection, strong rebounding, and also improving his overall offense, where he actually has become a much better finisher at the rim. Not a shooter, can't take threes, not a good free throw shooter. Like, he has his flaws, which is why I don't think he'll ever become a star in the NBA by any means, but he does a lot of other little things really well, which is why he's one of the highest box plus minuses from this class. And then finally at number 10, the Bucks selected Thon Maker. Thon Maker, a player a lot of scouts had high hopes for in terms of his potential. Versatile and athletic big coming out of high school, but another one of those bigs that never really found his footing in the NBA. had a hard time keeping up with the pace of the league, getting bodied by bigger, stronger NBA centers, and as a result, quickly found his way out of the league. As such, instead of taking Maker, the Bucks are going to select Caris LeVert. LeVert has been one of those players in the NBA that isn't the most efficient player, not the best decision maker at times, but he can get you a bucket when you need it. A solid scorer, can heat up in a hurry, a streaky shooter though, and again, when you stack up the rest of the players in this class, he's performed a lot better than guys who were selected before him, as he ended up going 20th overall in that draft. And there you have it, redrafting the 2016 NBA draft. Let me know where you guys would have redrafted players differently, or if there's any player that I absolutely missed on. Some other notables that could have been drafted in the top 10 that didn't crack my list anyway: Zubac, Buddy Hield, Malik Beasley, and even Taurean Prince. But let me know how you felt in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.